we talked about, and Rabbi Itkin mentioned, about the koiches that the Rabbeim give us, that the Rebbes give us, and the kinds of things that the Rebbe has empowered us with. You know, you might think, okay, it's nice to have a Rebbe, it's nice to have a teacher, it's nice to have a Rosh Yeshiva, but what's so special? We talk about the Baal Shem Tov, the Rabbeim, the Rebbe, our Rebbe, and what they've given us, what they've empowered us with. And basically, if you think about it, and you obviously need to learn a lot to be able to fully understand it, and I can tell you, the more I learn, I've been learning the Maimonim and the Sichos for several years. But I can tell you, each year, every time I go over the same Maimer, the same Sicha, over and over and over again, I finally say, oh, wow, I can't believe I've learned the Sicha so many times, and now I see what it says in the Sicha, and now I see what the Rebbe is teaching us, and now I see how to take what it says and apply it so I can take a lesson from it. It's unbelievable when we say that Torah is arucha me'eretz mido or rechava min yom, how great Torah is, how unlimited Torah is. And we sit down sometimes and we learn a Blat Gemara, we learn a Mishnah, we learn a Sicha, a Maimer, and we say to ourselves, okay, it's very nice, and let's go on to the next one. But the truth is, if you really learn it and you sit down and thoroughly learn it again and again and again, each time you say, wow, and the next time you're back there, you say, I can't believe it, I didn't see this. And there's more and more and more and more to it. It's the same when you learn the Pasuk Chumash. You know, in the first grade, they start learning Chumash, and they're learning the Pasuk of Chumash, Bereishis bara Elikim es hashamayim ves haaretz, and your child comes home and you ask your child, what did you learn? And they tell you they learned the Pasuk of Chumash. Which Pasuk? The Pasuk of Bereishis. And you ask him, do you understand it? And he says, sure. And he starts telling you what the words mean. Bereishis in the beginning, bara Elikim, Hashem created, and so on. And they understand it. And then you go to a person that's 90 years old and you ask him, can you explain to me what the Pasuk means? And he'll say, I've been trying to understand it, but I don't quite understand it fully yet. So it's the same Pasuk of Chumash that the first grader understands it fully, and the 90-year-old may not understand it yet fully. And it's the same with everything of Torah. It's something that is unlimited. And what the Rebbe has shared with us and taught us and explained to us and showed us how to see it, how in every pasuk, pshuti shel mikra, you take a simple pasuk, a pasuk that has simple explanations, simple meanings, and the Rebbe says, learns a Rashi and tells us, what is Rashi telling us? What is the meaning of it? And the Rebbe takes it apart and tries to understand it and then shows us that we didn't quite understand what Rashi is even telling us, or what the pasuk is even telling us. And then when you learn it from a different perspective, the Rebbe says, perhaps we can understand it in this way or the other way. And the perhaps is where the Rebbe is showing us we didn't even get it to begin with. And if we learn it the way the Rebbe is showing us, we have a whole different insight with a whole lesson, with a whole message. And beginning with an example that Rabbi Itkin has talked about, where the Rebbe shared with us something that seemed to be something novel, that birthdays are so special. What's so special about birthdays? And the real meaning of it is what the Rebbe has shared with us, to look at it from the perspective. So on the one hand, you might say, the Gemara says, we're perhaps better off if we wouldn't have been created, because there are so many challenges out there in the world. But at the same time, the other perspective that the Rebbe shares with us is that when we recognize that this is the very special day that the Eibishter chose our neshama to come down into this world, for what purpose? Because the Eibishter knew that in today's day, on Chai Elul, this is the day that the neshama of the Baal Shem Tov has to come down to this world, because today the world needs this neshama. So that's Chai Elul for the Baal Shem Tov and for the Alter Rebbe. But think about it from your perspective, each and every one of us perspective. The day of our birthday that Rebbe shared with us is so special. Why is it so special? Because this is the day that the Eibishter decided that without you, the world can't continue to exist. And that's why on this day, we were created. So it's an empowerment. The Rebbe is showing us how special we are, that without us, the world can't continue to exist. That's what the world is all about, and that's what we're all about. That's the specialty that we're all about. So you might ask, we can ask one another, Why are we so special, or where do we get these koiches to be so special? Yes, the Eibishter has empowered us, has told us we can do all of it, but the reality is sometimes we think to ourselves, where do we get those koiches? Where do we get the ability? Where do we get the strength to be able to utilize the koiches, the strength that the Eibishter gave us? Sometimes we sit around and we say to ourselves, I don't have the strength, I can't go on, I've done as much as I could, it's time to just sit back and relax and read a book because there's nothing more I can accomplish. So for this, the Torah tells us in just this past Parsha, and the Rebbe quotes it, it's quoted in Tanya, it's quoted in Maimorim, it's quoted in Siches, Hadvik b'talmidei chachamim, that a Talmud Chacham certainly has in a revealed way the koyach ha'in sof. You know, there's the famous story with somebody once came to the Rebbe, a reporter once came to the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe, Rebbe, people say that you can perform miracles. Do you have a monopoly on miracles? Is it something only you can do and nobody else can? And the Rebbe said, no, you can do it too. So he said, really? I can do miracles? How can I do miracles? And the Rebbe responded to him, the idea of a miracle is to be able to go beyond your limitations. As creations, we are by definition a creation. A creation is limited. How do we become unlimited? Connect with God. God is unlimited. So when we connect with God, we too can become unlimited. So the Rebbe said to him basically that as long as you begin doing mitzvahs, each time you do a mitzvah, mitzvah means tzaf, so you connect with Hashem. Each time you connect with God, you become less limited and more unlimited. So the concept of that Chassidus shares with us is Hadvik b'talmidei chachamim. It's our job to connect with our Rebbe. Why? For a very simple reason. Then we can reveal the unlimited power that lies within us. The tzaddik, the Rebbe, enables us to reveal our unlimited power and to accomplish what we need to fulfill our mission on this world. Because otherwise, yeah, the question is, how can we do it? But when we connect with the Rebbe, whether it was, as Rabbi Itkin mentioned, once upon a time we used to go into Yechidus to the Rebbe, and I remember from the time I was 13 years old and on, every year we used to go into the Rebbe on our birthday to Yechidus. We came into the Rebbe gave us, we'd write a zettel to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would give us brachas, and we spent maybe 30 seconds there in the Rebbe's room, but those 30 seconds got us through the entire year. We were able to ask the Rebbe whatever we wanted, and the Rebbe told us what we wanted. And sometimes if the Rebbe just looked at us, that was an unbelievable connection. When the Rebbe's eyes and our eyes connected, it was unbelievable. The Gemara says that by one of the greatest sages, that one was the greatness that he said about himself, that he was able to look into the eyes of one of the great tzaddikim. That in itself was the greatest thing in his life. He was able to look into the eyes of Rab Meir. So just that in itself is a tremendous accomplishment. So just to be able to look at the Rebbe and see the Rebbe, how much more so when the Rebbe specifically shared with us. And as Rabbi Itkin mentioned, a particular Yechidus that we had, my wife and I, on the day of just before our Chasana, we went into the Rebbe. And at that point, the beginning of the Yechidus, our grandparents went in with us as well, grandparents, parents, and then afterwards the grandparents and the parents would step out, and it was the Chassan and Kala that remained with the Rebbe themselves. But at that point, when the one set of grandparents, Rabbi and Rebbe Posner was there, they had just come from a particular event that took place with a shliach, my brother-in-law, Rabbi Darren, in Amherst, Connecticut. So he had been there just a couple of years, and he had made a big event. This was his first huge event where he made a concert. And this was going to be his first huge event. And obviously, as he was getting ready for the event, he was very concerned. You know, it was going to cost a lot of money to have that event, to bring the singers for the event. And he was concerned. This was on the college campus. How many students are going to show up? Are there going to be any students showing up? And he was very, very concerned about it. And the event took place that Sunday. And that Sunday evening, we went into Yechidus. And just to give you an idea, the way the Rebbe thinks about everybody, thinks about everything and the hatzlacha of everyone that's connected with the Rebbe. As we went into Yechidus, the Rebbe turns to Rebbetzin Posner and says, I know you're coming from this event that your grandson had just made. Tell me, was it successful? And she goes on and says, yes, there was a nice crowd. There was a big crowd. And did he make money also? Yeah, it was nice. It was beautiful. And the Rebbe says, turns to her and says, so Farvos is Yisroel given azay fardaiget. Why was your grandson, Yisroel Darren, so concerned the whole Shabbos? So after Shabbos, I called up Rabbi Darren and asked him, did you write to the Rebbe that you were concerned the whole Shabbos, that the Rebbe mentioned this? So he said, as a matter of fact, he didn't write to the Rebbe, but he says, trust me, a whole Shabbos I was walking around terribly concerned, is anybody going to show up? And the Rebbe knew how concerned he was, and the Rebbe said, it was so successful, why was he concerned a whole Shabbos? The point being that when we connect ourselves with the Rebbe, and this was back then, and this is today, the Rebbe, as the Rebbe has told us, whatever was once upon a time continues to be now, even more so. With our connection with the Rebbe continuously thinks about us, gives us brachas, empowers us to be able to accomplish what we need to. When a day of Chai Elul comes around and we sit around and we Farbrengen, as the Rebbe has told us, this is a very special day, it's a special yontif. We wish each other b'yontif. B'yontif means it should be a good day, we should be able to accomplish all that is expected of us on a yontif. A yontif is a day of empowerment. The koiches that are given on a yontif is so much more so than any other regular weekday. That's why we wish one another with yontif. And again, this was one of those things that was revealed to us, our generation. Once upon a time, it was a secret. Nobody knew about this yontif. It was only, as Rabbi Itkin mentioned, the Frierdiker Rebbe revealed it in Tafshin Gimel in 1943, that from now on, everybody can know. Until then, it was only a secret amongst the great people, the great Chassidim, or the great, not even the great Chassidim, amongst the Rebbe's families who knew that. But otherwise, nobody knew about it. But the fact that we know about it, that was shared with us, it shared with us so that we should utilize it. We should get both the brachas that we're given, utilize the brachas to be able to strengthen ourselves, so that we recognize how empowered we are to make the world a better world, to refine the world, to prepare the world. And it's our job today as we sit and we Farbrengen on the Zoom. What does Farbrengen on the Zoom do? It's again one of those things that the Rebbe introduced to the world, that Farbrengens don't have to be such quietly and secretly in a little room, in a little Farbrengen, and even a little Farbrengen amongst thousands of people. It has to be amongst millions of people. Once upon a time, when I remember the first time there was a hookup with the world from a Farbrengen, was the first time when the Rebbe actually had a Farbrengen where the Rebbe connected with Eretz Yisrael. Remember Rabbi Yitkin, that Farbrengen where the Rebbe not only connected, so they heard what the Rebbe said, but the Rebbe wanted, they should be able to say l'chaim to the Rebbe. It should be a two-way thing. The Rebbe should be able to speak to them, and they should, and initially it didn't work, and then the Rebbe said, let's try again, and let's try again. The Rebbe said, sometimes a baltikeya blows with a shofar, and it doesn't always work. So there's a special saying that you say, so that maybe it should... There's a pasuk that said, so the Rebbe said, let's try it, let's say it, and maybe it'll work. And it actually worked. They said, l'chaim, l'chaim v'levracha. But again, that was the introduction of sharing what you have, not just with the people around you, but the world around you. The people that are not necessarily in the limited space that you have, but share it with everybody. L'chaim soll der Rebbe helfen. We should have lots of simchas, lots of schusim to share with one another, and lots of nachas from one another. And we should have lots of Yiddish, Chassidish, and nachas from all of our families. We should have gesund and nachas. L'chaim, l'chaim, v'levracha.
Thank you. Na